A sharp December wind swept across the city as Rowan Hale stepped out of the sleek black SUV, his twin daughter's small hands gripping his coat. Christmas lights twinkled across the downtown streets, but despite the glow, Rowan felt a familiar heaviness pressing against his chest. Tonight was supposed to be a simple Christmas Eve dinner with his girls. No business, no meetings, no responsibilities, just a father trying to make memories. But as soon as he entered the warm, bustling restaurant and his eyes landed on a tired single mother struggling to calm her crying triplets at a corner table, something inside him shifted. It was as if someone had taken the snow globe of his life, shaken it violently, and forced him to see a world beyond his own wealth and carefully controlled routine. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us of humanity, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Acts of Kindness. It truly helps more people find these heartfelt stories. Rowan tried to take his seat with a calm smile for his daughter's sake, but his gaze repeatedly drifted back to the woman. She looked far too young to carry so much exhaustion, her shoulders bent under the weight of 3 infants who all demanded attention simultaneously. Her face was beautiful, but not the polished socialite beauty he was accustomed to in corporate circles. Hers was the beauty of someone who had fought through storms and still kept going. Her name, he overheard, was Maren, and she seemed to be surviving the evening by sheer willpower, a few quiet murmurs to her kids, and an occasional deep breath that betrayed the battles she fought alone. The restaurant buzzed with families laughing, children wearing bright sweaters, and servers rushing with trays of Christmas specials. The warmth, the music, and the scent of cinnamon should have soothed Rowan, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching someone drowning in plain sight. His own past, the part he rarely let anyone see, flickered like a ghost. Memories of losing his wife during childbirth, memories of those first years when he tried to run a rising tech empire while waking up at 2 a.m. for bottle feedings. Except he hadn't been alone. He had nannies, assistants, housekeepers, and family support. Maren, by the look of it, had none of that. He watched her attempt to eat between bouncing a restless baby on her knee and handing a sippy cup to another. Her food had gone cold. She took a few rushed bites before setting her fork down to soothe the child, now hiccuping after crying too hard. The soft glow of the lights reflected the desperation she tried to hide behind a brave expression. Rowan's heart clenched unexpectedly. This was not pity. It was recognition. The kind that broke a man when he realized some people fought battles far harder than he ever had. His twins, Arya and Eileen, noticed his distraction and followed his gaze. The girls whispered to each other, then looked up at him with eyes far wiser than their 7 years. They didn't say anything, but Rowan understood instantly what those eyes asked. They had inherited their mother's compassion. He exhaled slowly. Rowan tried to focus on dinner. The girls were excited, chattering about school, Christmas presents, and the snow expected overnight. But each time he smiled at them across the candle-lit table, he felt a nudge of truth. He had brought them here to make good memories, to teach them kindness by example. And here kindness was calling him, sitting just 3 tables away, wrapped in a frazzled woman's trembling hands. The turning point came when one of Maren's toddlers knocked over a cup of juice. The sticky liquid spread across the tablecloth and dripped onto the floor, and the flustered mother jumped up, embarrassed, apologizing to the server, even though she looked like she wanted to cry. Rowan watched her gather napkins desperately, her eyes glassy, her movements stiff with panic. People around her frowned, some muttered, others stared. No one lifted a hand to help. Something inside Rowan shattered. The quiet wall he kept around his heart since his wife's passing. He had spent years burying guilt and loneliness under business deals and success. Now he couldn't sit and watch someone else drown while he rested in comfort. He excused himself from the table and approached her, the warm lights reflecting off his neatly tailored winter coat. She barely looked up, startled, assuming he was there to complain about the mess or noise. But instead, Rowan gently crouched down, helped her steady one baby's bottle, and passed her a clean towel from the server's cart. She froze at the unexpected kindness. her eyes widening slightly as if she had forgotten what it felt like to not carry the weight alone. Though their exchange was brief and wordless, the impact was immediate. The restaurant's mood shifted around them. Arya and Elin watched with glowing faces, proud of their father, while Marin's shoulders relaxed for the first time since she walked in. She mouthed a quiet thank you, but her gaze lingered on him as if trying to understand why a stranger, especially one who looked so polished and important, would bother to help her. Rowan returned to his table, but he could feel her eyes drifting toward him, perhaps curious, perhaps grateful. He didn't want recognition. He didn't need it. Something deeper stirred inside him, a protective instinct he thought had died with his wife. He kept checking subtly to make sure she was okay. As desserts arrived, the triplets began dozing off one by one, but the exhaustion on Marin's face grew heavier. She had to strap one baby to her chest, carry another on her hip, and lift a third seat carrier all at once. The task looked impossible. No human being should have to juggle that load alone. She tried to lift everything, but her knees trembled, and the strain on her arms was clear. She blinked rapidly, fighting tears. Rowan stood again before he even realized he'd moved. The twins quickly hopped down to follow him. He approached her gently, making sure not to startle her. With a polite nod and a warm expression, he offered silent assistance. She hesitated, unsure if she should accept help from a stranger, especially a man who looked affluent enough to have cameras around him at all times. But the triplets stirred and whimpered, and fatigue won over pride. She gave a tiny, grateful nod. Rowan lifted the heaviest carrier with ease. His twins each took a small blanket from her hands and carried them proudly. Marin's breath hitched, perhaps from relief, perhaps from the shocking realization that a stranger had seen her struggle and didn't turn away. Outside, snowflakes drifted lazily across the glowing streetlights. People rushed by in coats and scarves, but the small group moving toward the parking area felt like their own quiet universe. The wind was cold enough to bite, yet something warm wrapped around them, a shared, unspoken understanding. At her modest old car with a dented bumper and a side mirror taped on, Marin apologized for the trouble, shaking her head as if embarrassed by her circumstances. Rowan only responded with gentle understanding in his expression. His twin girls stood close, visibly concerned for the babies and their mother. It was a moment where wealth meant nothing, titles meant nothing, only humanity mattered. Marin fumbled with car seats and buckles, her fingers numb from the cold. Rowan silently helped secure the carriers while her hands shook uncontrollably. She finally leaned against the door, exhausted beyond her limits, and in that moment, he truly saw her, not just as a struggling mother, but as someone who had been fighting alone for far too long. He asked if she was okay, not with words but with his eyes, his gentle posture, and the way he slowed his movements to match her ragged breath. She blinked away, swelling emotion, and nodded, though she clearly wasn't. Before stepping back, Rowan noticed the thin tread on her tires. Snow would be falling hard later. He remembered his own wife, how she would have insisted he help, how she believed kindness saved lives more quietly than heroism. He reached into his coat, handed her a discreet card with his company's emergency service number, and gestured subtly that she could call any time for assistance, no matter the hour. Her lips parted in surprise, nearly trembling, and she pressed the card to her chest as if it were a lifeline she didn't know she needed. As Rowan turned to leave, Marin whispered a soft, fragile thank you, one that carried the weight of months, maybe years, of silent battles. His twins waved enthusiastically at the babies, who giggled in return, and for the first time in a long while, Rowan felt something inside him heal just a little. He didn't know her story, but he wanted to. The next morning, Christmas Day, snow blanketed the city in serene white. Rowan sipped coffee in his penthouse kitchen while the twins unwrapped presents. The warmth and laughter filled the luxurious home, but something tugged at his memory, the image of Marin's tired smile beneath the streetlight. Hours later, a call came through the emergency helpline he had given her. Her car had slid on icy roads near a quiet residential street. The babies were okay, but she was stranded. Rowan didn't hesitate. He left the twins with their aunt and drove through the snow-slick city until he found her standing beside the stalled car, shivering in a thin coat, trying to calm her now fussy triplets. The relief on her face when she recognized him could have melted the snow around them. He helped her and the babies into his warm SUV. Inside, with the heater humming softly, the babies calmed instantly. Maren sank back, swallowed by exhaustion, her eyes closing for a moment longer than a blink. It was clear she hadn't slept properly in days. Instead of dropping her home and leaving her to continue struggling alone, he made a decision he hadn't expected to make. He took her to a warm, family-style restaurant near the harbor, somewhere quiet, cozy, and safe, where she could finally breathe while he helped feed the babies and made sure they were comfortable. Through soft glances and quiet nods, they shared stories of loss and resilience. She revealed that the triplets' father had left before their birth, unable to handle the responsibility. She had been working 2 jobs, barely scraping by, refusing to give up on her children. Rowan, in return, shared the aching grief of losing his wife and raising twins while trying to run a company alone. As they sat there, surrounded by the glow of Christmas lights reflecting on the harbor water, something gentle formed between them. Not romance, not obligation, but connection. 2 people who understood loneliness too deeply, sitting together in unexpected warmth. He realized that sometimes fate didn't shout, it whispered, and Christmas had whispered her name. The story ends with Rowan walking Maren and her babies to his SUV once more. But this time, he didn't see her as a stranger he'd helped. He saw her as someone whose courage humbled him, someone whose strength stirred a quiet promise in his heart, to be there, to support her, to not let her fight alone anymore. And when she looked up at him with hopeful eyes, a new chapter began silently between them. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Acts of Kindness. Your engagement helps us continue sharing powerful stories of compassion. Special request: comment, "Kindness lives here," to spread positivity before you go. Would you like a thumbnail text, title variations, or SEO tags for this story?